In the first part, we drew our WSPS diagram. Now we want to look at how each of the following affects the WS curve, PS curve, and the natural rate of unemployment. So if we start with part one talks about how workers become more worried about losing their job. So workers become more worried about losing their jobs. So now this implies lower bargaining power, implies lower bargaining power for workers for any given level of U. So for any given unemployment rate, now they'll have lower bargaining power for any given level of U. So we can essentially model this as a Z decrease in Z, because remember we said Z includes all those factors that affect a worker's bargaining power for any given unemployment rate. So when the bargaining power is going to go down, workers would be willing to accept lower wages for any given level of U. Of U, and which basically means diagrammatically that means the WS curve shifts down, because we know what the WS curve shows. WS curve shifts down because we know what the WS curve shows, the wage the workers demand. So if their bargaining power falls for any given level of U, so they'd be willing to accept lower wages for any given level of U, and that would be represented by a downward shift in the WS curve, which we know represents the wage the workers demand. Let's illustrate this diagrammatically. So for that, let's go to here. So in our WSPS diagram, what this will represent is a downward shift of our WSPS diagram. So let's represent this over here in this graph that you already do in part one. So for this, what we do is graphically, we know over here, our initial equilibrium is at point A at the intersection of a downward sloping wage setting curve and a flat price setting curve. So now what happens is what will happen is WS curve shifts down because workers are willing to accept a lower wage for any given level of U. WS curve shifts down. So we can represent this as a downward, sorry, let me just make this better. So this will shift down. So this is WS prime now, and you know this represents the wage workers demand. So now when WS curve shifts down, so new equilibrium is going to be at point A prime. So this has essentially shifted down. And this is at the intersection of the new WS and unchanged PS. This PS curve hasn't shifted in this case. So the new equilibrium is over here, A prime, and this is the new natural rate of unemployment, UN. Right? So we can see over here, in the new equilibrium, UN goes down.